Hey everyone, it's dragonrider, and let's get into some Warlock decks. I know a lot of people are pretty excited for some of these cards. Taking a look at my deck here, I put together basically a combination of the kind of Imp Curse Lock with the new, I'm just going to say like Crescendo package. It's like the Fatigue cards that have come out that are, have people pretty excited. So the cards that are new, that are kind of this package, is this Baritone Imp. It's a 2-mana 2/2, and you take fatigue damage, and then you gain that much health and attack. So if you only take 1, you pay 2, and you get a 3/3 Imp. Not terrible, but it helps progress that like fatigue, tick. It helps get the fatigue going and kind of build that up. The same way that this kind of works for like the Demon Hunter relics. Then the other one is the Crescendo. Now this is the one that I think is the most impactful and why I feel like I just want to call it like Crescendo. Like we just call the deck Crescendo deck or like Curse Crescendo or something. But this is taking fatigue damage, and then you're going to deal that much to all enemies. So all enemies means their face as well, which is why it's so important. And if you build this up, when you're at 4, 5, 6, then that's a lot of damage that's going to their face. And it's all enemies, so it's not clearing your own board at the same time, which is huge. So that seems pretty impactful. And then the other one is the Crazed Conductor. Now, this one, you take that fatigue damage, and then you're going to summon that many imps. So this one and the Baritone Imp are kind of helping you summon imps, which is why I figured, well, you're already kind of doing a couple of imp things here, so we might as well just kind of use the same package that we were before with the imps and curses and add this into it. Plus, the Cursed Imp deck did lose some kind of important cards. A little bit of important cards, but I would say, honestly, the most important thing is losing Bran from the core set. I think you can still get a pretty decent amount of curses going with the, the typical curse package, right? You have the Dragged Belows, you have the Cultists, you have the Zakul in there, and of course, the Abyssal Waves. The other card that is actually pretty important is losing the Dreadlich Tamsin to be able to deal 3 to the board, draw 3 cards, and get that replaced hero power. But I think that there's still enough, hopefully, in the deck with other draw and other things to kind of keep the draw going and be able to draw through to find some of these things. Now, the next kind of important thing that like the Cursed Imp Block deck did lose with this rotation is the kind of cheap removal, and that's kind of important. The cheap removal there, being able to sacrifice something, deal 2 damage to the opponent's board, might actually be helpful in a lot of cases. So unfortunately, losing that kind of does hurt, but there is the Crescendo. There are some tools as well that you could run here, something like the Plague Eruption instead. It's not quite as cheap, but you don't have to remove a minion to deal that 2 damage. So that's something. It does deal 2 to everything and not just enemies, but it's a possibility. I still wanted to include Lady Darkvein because looking at the couple of like the Crescendo, this is a Fel spell. It's not a shadow spell. So you can run these together and not necessarily worry about Lady Darkvein pulling like a Crescendo or something. That might not be terrible, but maybe that would actually be too good. So I still kind of want Lady Darkvein in here, specifically for the Abyssal Wave, although it's not terrible if you get a Dragged Below. Maybe the Mortal Coil isn't great to get from Lady Darkvein, but you really, won't play it that way. But, having the couple of Mortal Coils in there, having Drain Souls, you might be able to use on those little 2/1s to trigger another curse. I think could definitely be helpful. And then, of course, some of the same kind of early game imp package. You still have like the flame imps, the librarians, the fiendish circle, and the vile library to kind of buff those up. Plus, like I mentioned already, the baritone imp itself, plus maybe some imps from the conductor. So there's still kind of an imp package here. And of course, with that, you have the impending catastrophe to also be able to help you draw. So definitely still have some draw mechanic there. Now, I'm hoping that just having some imp stuff in here and having the catastrophes are enough draw. I did actually consider running Scourge supplies as well, just for additional draw and being able to, discard something that you didn't really need and just be able to keep drawing. That might go in if I feel like this deck is lacking draw, but I'm hoping that there is enough draw in here. And just the bodies. Maybe, again, Mortal Coil might be able to draw you something, but relying just on the impending catastrophes for draw and hero power might not be enough. We'll see. And then the other one I want to talk about is the new card, Void Virtuoso. Now, it's during your turn, your hero's immune. It's a 1/3 body for 1 mana, which I think is great. And I think this can be used, even in some games, you might just drop this on turn 1 and then hero power on turn 2, and you don't take damage, and there's some extra draw. Otherwise, you can use this, and with it only being 1, you should be able to fit this in fairly easily, I would say, into some of these like mid-game turns. Play the Void Virtuoso and then Crescendo, so that you don't actually take that fatigue damage. So that would be pretty interesting to be able to kind of mix these together. So I think this seems like it could be pretty solid. There might be a couple of cards that we need to change or test with, of course. As I said, like the draw specifically, depending on how quickly you may need to draw to those crescendos or draw to more of those fatigue tools or finding the curse stuff. So our community deck here, we have a Chad Warlock submitted by Bad Player. Thank you for the submission. I love this. Look at this curve. This is like almost the opposite of what I just had. I feel like mine was like all centered here. Lots of top end. Of course, if you're running Thaddeus and the big demons, then that makes a lot of sense. They're going to have this kind of more top end. So let's take a look at this deck here for the Warlock cards. A lot of new tools here. The Defile coming back into core. Really great addition. I definitely like that one. Drain Soul. Of course, you're going to need the Shallow Grave for your slime and just for some of the other death rattles. Now, this one also, I was definitely looking at this and considering this myself. Void Caller also coming back into the core set. So being able to trigger this death rattle and take a demon from your hand, put it out onto the battlefield, potentially even earlier than slime, seems pretty great. But the really cool thing is the Void Caller and the slime kind of do different things, since the Void Caller is demons and then the slime is undead. So it really is like very specific things that are going to get pulled out, which I think makes it really, really good, right? The Void Caller isn't going to pull the Dark Han out of your hand, but it could pull this Enhanced Dreadlord or the Mal'Ganis, which is pretty neat. And being able to honestly like Void Caller and then kill it off and have Mal'Ganis on the board, pretty nice. You could even do like what I was talking about with my deck a little bit. Your hero's immune, and then you'll get to hero power essentially for free without taking damage, or just have a big body on the board. And these Dreadlords, 5/7s that also put out 5/5, that's a lot of stats, especially if you can actually pull them out of the deck like with this Void Caller early. So I think the combination of the Void Caller pulling the demons, then the slime pulling the undeads, should create like a really good synergy of hopefully being able to more consistently just like pull big stuff out of your hand, right? Just keep that kind of chain of creating very large, awkward boards for your opponent to deal with like, repetitively, which is a really cool like concept to put these together and kind of mix those packages. And then also running this new Dirge of Despair, deal 3 to a character, and if it kills it, summon a demon from the deck. So again, the Dreadlords, the Mal'Ganis, seems pretty great there. And I also wanted to take a look at these neutrals, because this is very interesting. So of course you have the Thaddeus and the Flesh Behemoth, the Rivendare. These have kind of already been being run in the like Thaddeus or Chadius Warlock deck. A couple new additions here. Festival Security. Now this doesn't have a demon or undead tag, but it's a taunt with Finale. Force all enemy minions to attack this. Pretty interesting inclusion. I mean, honestly, just a 2/5 taunt seems fine if you do play it for the Finale, especially if your opponent is playing like smaller minions and going wider on the board. This just kind of clears that up and helps you survive. Warlock did also lose for kind of these longer game decks. The Entitled Customer was a really great tool that is now left standard to be able to kind of clear boards. So definitely seems like there's going to have to be a little bit of kind of fill in for that in terms of replacement. So that Defile, things like this Festival Security seem pretty good for that. Then there's also, again, a little bit like of healing and kind of trying to maintain and stay alive to get to these later things. The Audio Medic with Rush, and if you play it for a Finale, gain lifesteal, seems pretty decent. And this one I find the most interesting. Annoying Fan, choose a minion it can't attack while this is alive. This combo is so fascinating to me. Putting in the Annoying Fan to like shut down one of your opponent's minions, especially if it kind of comes down behind a Dreadlord or behind a Flesh Behemoth. Your opponent would have to use like a targeted spell or some other like AoE or something like that to be able to clear off that Annoying Fan, and can't just trade in minions if it's behind taunt. And there's quite a bit in here. So that's really, really interesting. And then the last one that I wanted to talk about is ETC being included in the deck. And here it shows from Bad Player what was included in the ETC band. It's Jaraxxus, Hellfire, and Gigafin. Jaraxxus, just another thing that works with the synergies. Hellfire, if you really need it to just kind of clear up your opponent's board potentially, or maybe even deal a little bit of damage. And the Gigafin also kind of serves for helping clear up the board as well. But the Gigafin not only kind of clears your opponent's board, but also puts out some threatening minions. So that seems pretty great. The Hellfire at least can be played the same turn as ETC, so that could make a difference there. I like those. That seems pretty neat to be able to kind of have this heavy like demon and undead packages together, and then have ETC in there for just like a little bit of additional support. Well, what do you think of these Warlock decks? Let me know down below. Thank you so much, everybody, for checking this out. And if you haven't already, go ahead and click into this video next to check out my Shaman Theorycraft, and I'll see you in the next one.